All right, hello and welcome. Today, we are going to become paleontological detectives, and our mission, if you choose to accept it, is to track down one of the most elusive clues in the entire fossil record, a dinosaur's last meal. I mean, it's one of the biggest questions in paleontology, right? For a creature that's been gone for like 66 million years, how do we actually know what was on the menu? Was T-Rex really that fearsome predator we all imagine? And what in the world did those giant long-necked herbivores even eat all day long? So for the longest time, really all scientists had were just educated guesses. They'd look at a skeleton, the teeth, the jaw, the shape of the skull, and they'd make some pretty smart inferences. And look, it was great detective work, for sure. But it was still indirect evidence. It left a ton of room for just pure speculation. But then, every once in a while, paleontologists get insanely lucky. They unearth a fossil that is so perfectly preserved, it contains the literal, undigested bits of the animal's last meal. I mean, these are the kinds of fossils that just change everything. Okay, so before we get to the really juicy stuff, and I mean that literally, let's take a quick look at how scientists used to figure out dinosaur diets. It's really all about anatomy. And yeah, the logic here seems pretty straightforward, doesn't it? You look at a carnivore's skull, and it's just full of these sharp, serrated teeth, perfect for tearing flesh. Then you look at an herbivore, and you see these flat, broad teeth, totally designed for grinding up plants. It makes perfect sense. But it's still just reasoning based on anatomy. It's a solid hypothesis, for sure, but it's not hard data. And that is what brings us to the main event. We're talking about those once-in-a-blue-moon kind of finds that give us the actual hard data. We're talking about finding stomach contents preserved for over 100 million years. It's wild. This quote from Jim Basinger really says it all. Finding one of these fossils is basically like winning the paleontological lottery. They're these incredible time capsules that give us a glimpse into the daily life of a dinosaur like nothing else can. So the big question is, what have these super rare finds actually taught us? Okay, let's kick things off with this absolutely incredible creature, the Borealopelta. So back in 2011, some miners in Canada accidentally stumble upon this stunningly preserved armored dinosaur. And inside its gut, a soccer ball-sized lump of its last meal. And when scientists analyzed it, they discovered it was, well, a surprisingly picky eater. Its stomach was almost completely full of fern leaves. But get this, only certain kinds of ferns, even though there were plenty of others around. But wait, this is where it gets even more fascinating. Mixed in with all those ferns was a whole lot of charcoal. And that one little detail just paints this vivid picture, doesn't it? The Borealopelta was probably walking through a recently burned forest, just chowing down on all the fresh ferns that sprout up after a fire. This tells us it was adapted to a fire ecology, kind of like moose or deer are today. That is a completely new insight into how it lived. And this right here is why every single one of these discoveries is so unbelievably precious. I want you to think about all the carnivorous dinosaur fossils that have ever been found, sitting in museums and collections all over the world. We have the last meal for only 21 of them. Just 21. That number is it's mind-bogglingly small. And that means every single new one has the potential to completely rewrite what we think we know about an entire species. All right, now let's switch gears and talk about the Microraptor, this little four-winged dinosaur. We already knew it ate stuff like birds and lizards, but then a researcher is just, looking through some old museum collections and finds something absolutely wild inside one of them, the tiny, perfectly preserved foot of a little mammal, kind of like a rodent. And that one little foot completely changed the game. It added a whole new item to the menu, and it showed us that Microraptor wasn't some specialized hunter. Nope, it was an opportunistic generalist, kind of like a modern fox or a crow, just snacking on whatever it could get its claws on. Okay, so if preserved stomachs are the absolute rarest of the rare, there's another source of clues that's, well, a little more common. It's maybe not so glamorous, but believe me, it is incredibly revealing. I am talking, of course, about fossilized poop. Yeah, the official term is coprolite, which literally just means dung stone. Pretty cool, right? And ever since way back in the 1820s, scientists have been studying these fossilized droppings to unlock all sorts of secrets about the past. They're basically biological and environmental archives, all wrapped up in one. And you know what's surprising? They're super diverse. Coprolites can be spiral, they can be round, they can be rod-like. I mean, they come in all sorts of shapes and sizes. Now, it's often really hard to say, okay, this dropping came from that dinosaur, but the shape and what's inside can still tell us a ton about the animal's digestive system. So what can you really get from a 100 million-year-old piece of poop? A truly astonishing amount of information. That's what. Of course, you've got direct evidence of diet, like little bone fragments or plant fibers, but you can also do things like extract ancient DNA, reconstruct its gut microbiome to see how healthy it was, find evidence of parasites. You can even identify pollen to see what the environment was like. They are just phenomenal records of ancient life. Let's take this sauropod from Australia, for example, the Dinosaurus. Scientists actually found its fossilized gut contents. It's a special kind of coprolite called a cololite, which, forms inside the colon. And what it showed was that this thing was a classic bulk feeder. It just ate everything. Conifers, flowering plants, you name it, swallowing it all whole and letting its huge gut and all the microbes inside do the heavy lifting. So when you put all of this together, what you get is something way bigger than just a prehistoric menu. Each one of these discoveries, whether it's from a stomach or a coprolite, is like another piece of the puzzle, and it's helping us build a much, much clearer picture of these entire ancient worlds. This really sums up the different survival strategies we've just been talking about, right? You've got the Borealopelta, which was a picky, selective specialist. Then there's the Dinosaurus, just a total indiscriminate bulk feeder. And finally, you have the Microraptor, the opportunistic generalist that ate whatever it could. See, these aren't just diets, they're totally distinct ecological roles. And honestly, that's the ultimate goal here. By figuring out who ate who and, who ate which plants, we can finally start to map out the incredibly complex food webs of these Mesozoic ecosystems. We can begin to understand the relationships between predator and prey, herbivore and plant, and really see how these amazing, long-lost worlds actually worked. I mean, from a picky herbivore that actually thrived on forest fires to a tiny little hunter with a taste for mammals, every single last meal tells a fascinating story. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? With so few of these amazing time capsules found so far, what other incredible secrets are still locked away in stone, just waiting for that one lucky strike of a pickaxe?